if you use the blood to seal the contract, you're talking about life force energy is sealing the contract. The contract's duration fades over time. So the blood and the blood magic ritual tells you that in the beginning, at its height of potency, the magic is very strong. As it wanes, it becomes faded as ink, and its potency also is fading to match the duration of the contract. Because you have to have an exit strategy to all contracts. And the contracts that they making is between the blood that's being spilled, being sold to the loose beings. The loose beings can take physical form or they don't have to. They can use another agency of influence in the physical world to bring about the effect that your blood sacrifice required. Then you have the second most powerful magic is sex magic, because spirit energy and sex energy are twins. They Gemini twins though. The spirit energy is descending, is feminine from source. The sex energy is coming from the root chakra, right? It's red, it's pure lust. It's rising up. And as the two rise, they balance each other out into what's a pink energy. The pink energy becomes the manna of life, right? And the energy is represented by a balancing of spiritual self and sexual self. And the disciplinary training tool is called fasting, because you raising your energy and you are using your output energy internally in order to allow your spiritual energy to expand from the inside out, as opposed to only being coming from the outside. So you becoming one with your higher self through the process of sex or abstinence from sex. You can use both. A man and a woman who are in agreement and in balance with each other can manifest their best life together as heaven on earth, but there's going to be required a physical action behind the effort to bring it into being. And this is why they say faith without works is dead. You have to do your due diligence to meet the energy requirements to activate the unified energy and to bring about in the 3D realm. The desire becomes the realization upon the agreement of the gender, right? And because he can feel it, he describe it because he can see it. Left brain, right brain. As he describe it, she feel it, they project it out into the world. But remember, the mirror effect applies. That means it's going to be the same but different when you see it. It might not be exactly how it looked when you visualized it, but there will be key components that'll make it unmistakable that this is what you manifested. It don't always look like you want it to look or expect it
Okay.
to.
Before I go on, I was trying to figure out how to word this because I just seen it in the chat where they talked about menstrual blood is the
Mm-hmm.
first beginning of magic. So I want to say I was trying to figure out how to word the sentence to you, and I was going to say if women knew the power within their menstrual cycle, their blood, would they be better off today if they knew the power within the menstrual blood?
Well, you got to remember, In order to usurp the divine feminine, you have to, anybody that has passes on the knowledge, what's called Yoni magic,
Mm-hmm.
right? You have Oshun priestesses in the Voodoo tradition that teach Yoni magic. In the European tradition, you have the priestess of Bridget or the priestess of Diana, who teaches the Yoni magic from the cultural standpoint. Then in India, you have, I can't even pronounce her name, Bhakta Shiva. She's the wife of Shiva, who is the embodiment of beauty, who teaches the women about the Yoni magic. In Kali Ma, the keeper of time, the dark mother, who keeps over the sacred dark places of the womb. And she purges it in time. And you can calculate it, and it's called the 28-day cycle, right? And the 28-day cycle is showing you the same cycles that we go through on Earth. They also go through in menstruation, but it's just played out on a microcosm to the macrocosm.
Mm-hmm.
So
Now
they
you're
deny the women the ritualistic knowledge to access the uterus power in the womb. This is what caused the Salem witch hunts. A lot of us don't know the Salem witch hunts was because one of our big mamas was teaching the orphan females from Europe how to harness their yoni magic. And when the um, political figures discovered this, they feared that they would join forces and use yoni magic to conquer the enemy. So they wanted to kill him before they all got the full knowledge. One of the most notorious stories from the Salem witch hunts is the women who was in the dancing frenzy. The dancing frenzy is fully activated mitochondrial DNA. When it's fully activated, the women become contagious one to another, and the dance is replicated in the dervish schools as the whirling dervish. And the women who wore the white gowns by the riverside, who harnessed the yoni magic, who activated the mitochondria, who danced in the circle, reflected the sunlight, and it left light beams flying back to the sun in order to respond to what Earth is telling the sun in the 3D realm. So the women were harnessing this magic in order to have what's called the construct of heaven. And this is why you always hear them talking about the veil. The bride wears the veil, not the groom. And when the veil is lifted, the great mother is seen, as in the shrine of the Black Madonna. Madonna means young maiden. Black means she worked for Big Mama, right? She is the youthful representation of what Big Mama is. Big Mama is the older version. She's not Madonna no more. Now she's the Dark Mother, or what they call her, um, the Isis and Child. They got another name for it, but it's the mother and child. So the mother raised the son in order to redeem the father. This all in the magic. They have
mm-hmm.
to villainize the women because if the women become conscious of the knowledge and the Sufis is practicing the rituals to raise the mitochondrial frequency, every mystic Sufi had a daughter that he taught in secret the sacred ritual to raise the mitochondrial frequency in order to purge wickedness from the earth. And so now those daughters, they called the daughters of the Sufi in the occult world. In the secret, they fall under the ancient Arab order of the nobles of mystic shrine. Or the keepers of the great shrine of the great mother. The great shrine represented in the takeover by the Vatican, named after Vaticus, the sister named Vaticus, who they built the the temple on top of her graveyard or grave site, depending on how you want to call it.
Okay. How does popular cultures affect the perception of sorcery? I wanna get stay on that sorcery thing for a minute.
Okay. So look, in the society we live in, they call it a Judeo-Christian society.
Hmm.
What that means is they are going to use the Judeo-Christian philosophical standards of influence in order for the people to respond in a particular way. And this is what's going to be the driving force for the development of a society. As long as you control the creator gods and the ruler gods and how they react to creation, you can steer how creation manifests through the great egregore, which is the universal mind. It's like you hijacking it with the help of all of the other guys that don't know they're helping you because you put circumstances in a path and you corral them like the farmer do the cows in order to get it from one part of the farm to the other, right? So they use what's called influence by having certain people speak on magic in a negative manner, right? And a lot of the types of magic are so vilified, and that's how they use the barrier of fear, which generates the common people's perception of what magic is and how it works, and that the devil is behind it. But you don't know that you the devil's agent because you're using his magic on yourself. That's
Hmm.
called the Amen spell. That's why all of the religions say Amen after they prayer, except the Buddhists.
Have you witnessed real sorcery?
Yeah, I know how to do it, but I don't do it.
Well, they say that sorcery is evil.
No, well, it can be used for evil.
Hmm.
It's like what Darth Vader told Luke Skywalker about the Force. He said, no, what I mean, Obi-Wan. He said, Luke, the Force is neither good nor bad. It is the intention of the Jedi who wields the Force that determines whether it's good or bad. You can use the magic for constructive or destructive purposes, or you can just use them to sustain something, right? The Force doesn't care about 3D reality. Only 3D beings care about 3D reality. The Force encompasses and permeates 3D, but it's not controlled by 3D. But you, as one of the gods, have sufficient enough control to contribute to the change. And that's why you have this mantra, be the change you want to see, right? People just think it sounds cute, but it's a scientific underpinning to that. You have to get the attention of the other powerful minds who may be distracted by finding the common thread because they all link up. And the
Okay.
universal mind is like a spider web.
All right. Once again, family, we speaking with our brother Rod Hayes. Rod Hayes is going in and breaking down this science, man. I love it. Straight from the head, too. Notice, I want y'all to notice that. Straight from the head. No notes. No notes. He got it all right here. So
Stay ready, don't get ready, son.
that's right. That's right. Can sorcery be explained through psychological phenomena?
Yes. So Carl Jung was a psychologist. They call him the occult psychologist because understanding the archetypes is what allows you to be able to read those occult and sorceress type energies. When you learn how to read archetypes, then naturally, if you study in psychology, you're going to run into Carl Jung, you're going to run into Sigmund Freud. Freud is the father of psychiatry. And if you tracing back in the United States, you're going to run into Dr. Benjamin Rush, who was the psychoanalyst who created the methodology of oppression. They call it the Willie Lynch syndrome. But he was a early sociologist and psychologist who was writing about it. When you get to France, you run into Gustave Le Bon, who was studying sociology and wrote the book The Crowd. In this book, it tells you how to control the masses by controlling who the antagonist is and who the protagonist is, and how to pit them against each other to optimize the effect. Right? Now, when you studying that and you understanding that the sorcery is in the movement of the people, it's in the manipulation of the most amount of people by controlling the narrative of the information they receive. Right? So the count, once you know how the sorcery work, your spiritual self builds you a natural defense system. But because we don't never study the magic, because we think it's evil, we never develop the proper defenses, what they call in the religious world, Christian world, putting on the full armor of God. You have to learn key aspects of the magic and how it works to protect yourself. And blood magic is why we were not able to break our oppression to the foreign agents that came over here, because they use a blood magic ritual in the blood of Crispus Attucks, the first to die, because you need what's called first blood. So that's why they make it prominent in the history books that you know who the first person to die in the American Revolution, right? Because by knowing that it's Crispus Attucks, now you know something else. You know whose blood they wrote the secondary constitution in, the one that's sitting in the George Washington Masonic Memorial. Now you know who blood it is, and now you know that they did it because they books say the blood of the righteous shall not be spilled in vain. So when they put you under the spell and they made you believe that the blood of the righteous shall not be spilled in vain, and they constantly telling you that a righteous chief, he was in the position of right from the land, on the land, and he was operating in his proper capacity as a leader on the land, and they execute him. So now they have to write the contract in his blood, a blood oath. We gonna honor it spiritually, and because we honoring it spiritually, it's gonna play out negatively socially. So then that's magic influencing politics, that's influencing the minds of the most people. Because you got to realize the most powerful or the most influential tools for teaching people in North America is religion and politics, right? And entertainment. Entertainment is more apt to reach them than religion and politics in this era. But it was an era where only the religious stuff was influential. And the religious stuff was brought specifically to enslave you mentally and spiritually. And the only way to enslave you mentally and spiritually is to first convince you to put yourself spiritually under a spell that'll keep you from protesting mentally. This was done in the 18th dynasty in the war between the Amin priests and the Aten priests. It's known legendary as the Priest Wars. The Amen spell makes the God being subjugate itself by saying Amen. He's confirming that he will not outshine any of the people around him. But they don't know that. They think that it means so be it. but they don't study Egyptology and hieroglyphics, so they'll never know what it means. So when you tell them what it means, because a preacher didn't tell them it mean that, they gonna think you lying and you making it up, never knowing that the preacher is this just as deceived, if not so more so, if he actually believe that BS he be teaching, than the people he's talking to. And if he's deceived, that's called the blind leading the blind. Now, it was a time where the ones who know concealed it in the church, the AME. This is why all the brothers from the lodges was AME Christians, because they was finding out what's going on and they was passing the messages through the church. But when Martin Luther King, I Have a Dream became the prominent battle cry in the nonviolent philosophy of Mohandas K. Gandhi, right, became the battle call, they abandoned the secret traditions. Only a handful of them still know the purpose of the AME Church was to pass tribal information in the presence of the enemy, using what the enemy gave us to control us as a way to be defiant to the enemy's control. So they became seduced, never knowing that after Elijah Muhammad had that historical meeting with Elijah Muhammad, that he discovered that he had integrated into a burning house. Right? When he tried to tell them, nobody didn't listen, because all they still remember is I had a dream. They don't remember that long before Columbus came, we were here. They don't hear that part. They don't hear him saying that Europe came over and they undergirded their white peasantry with an infrastructure. Financially speaking, this is. They had what they call farm college grants, right? They don't hear that Martin Luther King. They only still hear Have a Dream, which was the least of his greatest accomplishments or speeches. But we don't want to talk about that because we want to follow the victim mentality, because we've been putting ourselves in this spell so long. It's embarrassing to find out that you
figure out where everything is because I'm in like dark mode. I can't. I have to, it doesn't look the same. So y'all, if I be up here messing up, it's because I have changed the. Uh, I've used a new background that StreamYard has and a new setup, and so I got to get used to it. But greetings, greetings, greetings. I'm so glad. I'm glad that that you are here. I'm glad that you, and even you are here too. So without any further delay, let's get to it. Let's get to it. Let's talk about what's going on and what has taken place even in the last